Sutra 12. This is the next category, and it's how you can control your vrittis. It says these mental modifications are restrained by practice and non-attachment. So practice is effort towards steadiness of mind, and it's a very active process. And non-attachment is a more passive willingness to let go of things. And Sutra 13 says, of these two, effort towards steadiness of mind is practice. So I'm going to ask you this. Who has to put in the effort? Yes, Alice, yourself. You have to put in the effort. How many times do we go on an inspirational talk and you're listening to these beautiful words and there's, oh my God, these teachings are so wonderful. And then you say, oh, I wish my husband was here to listen to this talk. That would really help him. That talk was not for your husband. That talk was for you. That talk is for you. I wish my mother would listen to it. Then she wouldn't be like that. Nope. That talk is for you. That is for you to listen to, you to apply, you to put the effort in. And again, it's not just for your one portion in your day. It's not, okay, I've done my meditation in the morning and I'm done. No. Practice comes in the midst of it. Sitting in the middle of traffic, sitting in the middle of the MTR, totally crowded, sitting and facing a very difficult conversation. This is the essence of your practice. This is where the effort comes because it's difficult. It's very difficult. Now, this is where we can be very grateful for the family members and, our family members and our colleagues that push our buttons. All those people in our lives that give us that feeling, they give us the opportunity to practice. And who cares if we mess up and lose our peace and just throw a tantrum? We can go back, lick our wounds, reflect, and sure enough, if they live with you or they work with you or you see them on a regular basis, you will always have the opportunity to practice again. Effort towards steadiness of mind. And so it's not just a formal practice. The formal practice is to give you that renewed reminder. It's like a Post-it note. It's like an internal body-mind Post-it note. I feel so good and so peaceful and so empowered after this practice. I'm ready to take on today. And then you go out into the world and almost instantly something will happen. Opportunity to practice right there. So in Sutra 14, Sri Patanjali says, practice becomes firmly grounded when well attended to for a long time without a break and in all earnestness. In all earnestness means with sincerity, with your whole heart, all in, committed, totally committed. Swami Satchidananda likes to say, discipline, dedication, and devotion. I like to say, patience, perseverance, and passion. You need those elements for your practice to be firmly grounded. It's easy to practice here and now. We're in the thick of it. We're in a course. We've got 3.5 hours a day dedicated to studying yoga philosophy. What are we going to do with the rest of our day? And to be honest, this is the key to success for anything in life. When I learned how to play the piano as a kid, okay, I wasn't really very aware. I was just following what I was told. And then I stopped piano for a long time and I started to learn the piano again in my 30s. And I had a totally brand new teacher that taught piano from a do, re, mi, fa, so instead of an A, B, C, D, E. And the system was it was quite different, but it resonated with me, this new do, re. For some reason, do, re, mi, fa, so, I understood. A, B, C, D, E, I didn't. So then he had me doing these very mundane finger exercises that didn't even sound nice on the piano. And I had to do them every day. He said, do 10 minutes a day, then increase it to 15, then increase it to 20, and then half an hour, and keep doing them. And they were so dull. And because they didn't sound nice, I'd always want to skimp on it and just do my bare minimum just to get the exercise in and say that I did it. But what that was a fundamental skill to develop the muscles in my fingers, which was one separate thing. Another thing that he had me do, which was really dull, was solfège, which is a book where you got the notes, and the notes have tempo and rhythm, and you have to sing them and follow the rhythm and just go da, da, da. And it was, again, so dull. And you're doing this, and this was like, I was like, when am I going to play a piece of music? When is the music going to happen? When is the music going to happen? And he had me do this bit, and then this bit, and then this bit, and then this bit. And then after a couple of months, few weeks, it was just like, I don't want to do piano anymore. This is so boring. It's not what I thought it was going to be. He places a piece of music in front of me and says, now see if you can play it. Now, my whole childhood, I could play the piano through listening. I couldn't read music. So every time I did an exam, everything was wonderful. And the sight reading was 0 point, no points. As they say, nil point. And so I could never progress in my piano. And it was always something that I had wanted for myself. And so I decided when I took piano in my 30s, I said, okay, forget it. No exams. I just need to know the knowledge. I just want to get to be able to sight read. And it was like magical. It was magical. I could sight read for the first time in my life and play just by reading a piece of music and being able to play. And that was something that I thought was absolutely impossible. And then once you know the notes and you know the piece, you don't need to think about it. In the beginning, you're like, okay, there's the music, there's the hands, I can read it, slow, checking, 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 checking. And after a while, what happens? You don't need the music, you don't need to look at the notes, you can just play and the music flows from you. This only happens with discipline, dedication, and devotion. The same thing with your meditation practice. Patience, perseverance, and passion. First of all, your whole heart, all earnestness. You have to want this. You really have to want this because you love this. And you have to want it for yourself and nobody else. Because if you don't have that, you're not going to be very motivated. And the second is you have to be patient with yourself. You can't meditate every single day for 1 year and expect to reach enlightenment. This is ongoing. This is ongoing, ongoing, ongoing. And it doesn't mean that you stop living your life. Laundry will always have to be washed. Remember that. You're never done with cleaning your house. You may do a big fat spring cleaning, but you're never done. Remember that. And that's where perseverance comes in. Keep going, keep going, keep going. If you look at some of the sports athletes, just because they are the world champion, do they stop training? Are they done? No, they're never done. They are never done. They keep it up, they keep it up, they keep it up. So when you look at practice, the practice is not something you do, you get somewhere, and then you're finished. That is not yoga practice. Yoga practice must be integrated into your life all the time. That's how it works. That's how it works. So if you have that patience, you got it. Have that perseverance and love it and do it because you want it for yourself and no other reason. The nature of your practice changes based on the nature of your life. So before I was here in my life, I used to, like I said, I had a corporate life. And then I had what I call my mid-20s crisis. And I decided to take the path of yoga. I stayed at the ashram for many weeks. I did my teacher training. And then I went to South India and I stayed at Swami Satchidananda's yoga center in Tamil Nadu, Coimbatore. And for the better part of 2003 to 2004, I was in and out of that ashram, living, working, serving, studying. And it was amazing because in an ashram, it's okay if everybody stops work and stops their life and goes to meditate 3 times a day. They've got the 5 a.m. meditation, the 12 o'clock meditation, and the 5 p.m. meditation. And wow, 3 hours a day I was meditating. And then every week they'd have an extended 2-hour meditation. Oh, how easy it was to meditate and keep my mind still, how peaceful I felt. How peaceful I felt. But then I realized that a monastic life wasn't the life for me. And this was when I was exploring becoming a monk. That's why I kind of stayed there for 1.5 years to really try and understand what that life was about. I had a realization that my life had to take a different course from monastic. And as soon as I realized that, I leave India, come back to Hong Kong, and I meet my now husband, and we have a beautiful life together. And when I had kids, and Ryoko, you have 2 young kids, the nature of my practice changed. Suddenly, instead of meditating 3 hours a day, I was lucky if I even had 10 minutes to myself. It's very rare to have 10 minutes. So the nature of your practice has to change. And don't let that get you down. Adapt, adjust, accommodate the practice. Adapt, adjust, accommodate is a beautiful teaching of Master Shivananda. Adapt, adjust, accommodate the practice. What is the point of being flexible in your body if you are so rigid in your life? It's not about being rigid. And it's not about being too go with the flow, okay? I'm just going to meditate for 5 minutes and then I'm done and then I'll, no, you still need that discipline, dedication, devotion, but change the nature of your practice. And it's great because Sri Patanjali doesn't tell you how. You have to figure that out for yourself. You have to practice. So find what works and try it out this week. And if it doesn't work this week, okay, try it something else. But sometimes we get so fixed on how things should be. If you're the type of person that talks to yourself and says, I should be doing this, I should be doing this, it can only work if it's done this way. You are creating limitations and conditions and obstacles for reaching your goals. But I want to be the one to do it. Well, is that really what you want, or do you just want it done? Right? Do you see the difference? In a working environment, I want to be the one. I want the glory of saying that I did this. I want the credit. That's ahamkara, that's I, that's selfish, that's painful. Let's get the job done. Job is done. Done. Peace of mind. Whew. So you decide how it goes, and this is where the next side of things come. Okay, so this is something that you have to remember. Okay, what is practice? Practice is effort towards steadiness of mind. And your practice becomes firmly grounded. What does it mean to have a firmly grounded practice? A firmly grounded practice means you cannot miss your practice. You feel weird if you miss your practice. You feel uncomfortable. It's not good. If you practice one day, you don't practice the other, and you're okay with it, it's not firmly grounded. It's not fully integrated into your life. And when I say practice, again, I don't mean going to an asana class every day. You need to have some sort of a ritual, yes, because we are creatures of habit. So we have to work with what works with us. And the deeper and more ingrained we set a habit, the more effective it's going to be. But again, choose your habits wisely. Make it realistic and fit it and integrate it into your life. So for it to be fully grounded, I think of roots intertwining and embedding in the earth. Plant your roots down. Do it for a long time, without a break, and with all your heart. Because just like a tree, you can only see how big a tree grows and the fruit it produces from above the ground. You have no idea how deep those roots go down into the earth. That is your practice on your subconscious mind. You will only ever witness it in your conscious mind. But you have no idea how deep your practice will go into your subconscious. So keep going. Which brings us to the second side of the coin, non-attachment. So this is Sutra 15, and it's a complicated sutra. I will read it as one, and then I will read it out in chunks. The consciousness of self-mastery in one who is free from craving for objects seen or heard about is non-attachment. That is a total mouthful. What does this mean? The consciousness of self-mastery. You are aware that you have mastered something. That's what that means. In somebody who is free from craving. So you are aware that you have mastered your craving, whatever that craving may be, for objects seen or heard. I would like to say for anything desired, right? Seen or heard talks about your eyes and your ears, which are your sense objects. And usually what we desire happens through our eyes and ears, but it's really anything you desire. So when you have mastered that you are free from craving that which you desire, this is the practice of non-attachment. Very simply, you're not attached to the outcomes of what you desire. You want something, therefore you go after it. I had this lovely story which actually stuck with me. And it was told by some of the senior disciples of Swami Satchidananda at the ashram. Long time ago, when they were setting up the ashram, they all lived in trailers in this big, beautiful, raw piece of land. And a few of them decided to drive into town to go buy some ice cream because it was very hot. It was summertime. And then they asked Swami Satchidananda, Sri Gurudev, is it bad to want to have ice cream? Because we're going to make the effort to drive into town and buy some ice cream, but is that not tempting our senses? And Sri Gurudev said to them, well, let me ask you this. If you drive 2 hours into the town and you find that there is no ice cream and the store is shut, what then of your peace of mind? And if your peace of mind remains intact, if the ice cream store is shut, then by all means go for it. So this is the essence of non-attachment. You make your plans in life. It doesn't mean don't plan in your life. It doesn't mean don't make those efforts. But let go of the attachment to the outcomes. Focus on the task at hand and let go of the rest. When I was a little girl, I remember speaking on long distance to Swami Satchidananda, and I was going through my GCSE exams. And I told him I was feeling stressed because I had a lot of studying to do. I was worried I was not going to do well in my exams. And he said, simply do your best and God will do the rest. That's practice and non-attachment. Do your best and leave the rest. Now, in the context of mastering your mind, imagine how much freedom comes with knowing that you've done your best. But then what happens if you do your absolute best and you still fail? Because this is something that so many of us are so afraid of. What happens if you do your absolute best and you are not number one? You're not even in the top 10. What happens? What happens to your peace of mind? This is where practice and non-attachment comes in. This is where it becomes very revealing. And again, all is not lost because what are you learning? When you fail, you learn. When you fail, you grow. When you fail, it's important to reflect instead of deflect. Deflecting means blaming, finding 1,000 reasons why it wasn't good enough. But reflecting makes you realize, did I put enough effort into it? What could I have done differently? And that's the beauty of practice. You will always have another chance to try again. And this is something that as yogis who are interested in mastering our minds, we need to get comfortable with it. Comfortable with failure without it being like, oh, poor me, I'm such a failure. My life is over. It's never going to work. Ah. All ego. That is all ahamkara. We're taking it too personally. If you look at the people that are the most successful, what are their habits? Don't put them down. Don't be jealous of them. Go and learn from them. Go and learn from them. Stay humble. There's a beautiful story of a man who comes to an ashram and he wants to see the guru. And the Guru is like, yes, please come in, come in. And he says, Guru, I want you to teach me enlightenment. I have studied in the Himalayas with this great sage, and I have gone to Arunachala and studied with the Ramana Mahamirshis, and I have traveled to Pondicherry. And the Guru is like, yes, tell me more. Let's have some tea. And then the Guru takes the tea and pours it in the man's cup. And the man is going off about which school he went to, and he studied how many years under this guru, and he studied how many years under that teacher, and he did this retreat and that retreat. And all the while the Guru is pouring the tea, the man suddenly starts shouting, oh, Swami, Swami, you've poured too much. The teacup is overflowing. And the Guru said, exactly. Your cup is not empty. So anything I would pour in there is just going to overflow. Come back when your cup is empty and maybe I can fill it. We need to be empty cups every single day. Eating humble pie, which tastes horrible and makes our stomach quease and makes our egos cringe. But we need to eat that humble pie. You can't receive tea in an empty cup if your cup is high. The cup has to go low, humility, so that the teachings can be poured in. This is what is non-attachment, humility. It's a big practice of non-attachment. So the consciousness of self-mastery is in one who is free from craving of things seen or heard about as non-attachment. So you master those desires. You master when the ego gets a little bit out of control. Because again, we don't need to get rid of our ego. A lot of people say we need to purify the ego. But I think just look at it like a puppy. Train it. Train it and keep it in check. Right? One of my roommates in New York City, she used to have this funny saying. She used to be like, chickadee, check yourself before you wreck yourself. And I laughed so much. I love it. And I was like, oh, yes, exactly. Keep that ego in check. Train it and keep it in check. And that comes with the cultivation of humility. And this is essential for non-attachment to happen. So I'm going to read some of the commentary, because Sri Swami Satchidananda clarifies the difference between non-attachment and indifference and spiritual bypassing. And I think this is something that's very important, especially in this day and age. So I'm starting from the second paragraph, just under the verse. Non-attachment should not be misunderstood to be indifference. Vairagya, the word non-attachment, literally means colorless. V is without, and raga is color. Every desire brings its own color to the mind. The moment you color the mind, a ripple is formed. Just as when a stone is thrown into a calm lake, it creates waves in the water. When the mind is tossed by these desires, one after the other, there won't be peace or rest in the mind. And with a restless mind, you can't have a steady practice. When you want to do something constantly, your mind should not be distracted by other desires. That's why this sort of dispassion or non-attachment must always go with the practice. Any practice without this non-attachment can never be fulfilled. That's why many times people say, oh, I have been practicing meditation for so many years. I pray daily, morning and evening. Yes, they do that. We have to accept it because we see them sitting in meditation every day or going to the church or temple. Sometimes they sit in front of the altar for hours and hours. There are people who read the whole Bible every day. There are people who repeat the Bhagavad Gita every day. They won't even eat until they do that. The moment they get up, they go in front of the altar and repeat the entire Gita before even drinking a glass of water. But still they remain in the same mental state. The reason is that their minds are still dissipated because of their different desires. So I'm going to skip ahead. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 paragraphs later. So for me, it's on the top of page 25, but I think your book might be different. The sentence begins, the paragraph begins, is it possible to be desireless? Right, are you there? Is it possible to be desireless? No, actually, it is not possible. As long as the mind is there, its duty is to desire. This seems to be contradictory, but the secret is that any desire without any personal or selfish motive will never bind you. Why? Because the pure, selfless desire has no expectation whatsoever. So it knows no disappointment, no matter what the result. Swami Satchidananda had a really cute phrase. He said, if you don't make any appointments, you don't get any disappointments. Meaning, if you have no attachments, you won't get disappointed when the fruits of your labor don't work out as planned. You can water a seed and fertilize the soil and put it in a greenhouse, but you can't control the weather. You can't control whether a tornado or a typhoon is going to come and mess it all up. You cannot control whether a flood will come. This is where non-attachment comes in handy. And again, non-attachment doesn't mean indifference. It doesn't mean you stop caring. From the perspective of a mother who has a child, or even if you have a pet at home, you have to be attached. Actually, biologically, if you are bonded with your child, you are hardwired biologically to be attached to your child. Almost instinctively, you are attached to them. So how do we practice non-attachment when we have these biological attachments in our lives? It means to love without personal motive. It means to sincerely want the best for the child from the child's perspective. I argue constantly with my son every day over his Nintendo Switch and his video games. And I know he loves it. And I know that if I let him play it, I have 2 hours of quiet where I can get some work done. And it is very convenient for me. However, is that the best for him? Is that me loving him and raising him to have boundaries and discipline and not get caught up and addicted with his electronic devices? There's the practice and there's the non-attachment. The effort is to teach him that lesson. The non-attachment is letting go of the outcome. I hate you, Mom. You're so unfair. Although, in all fairness, my son has never thrown that tantrum. Why? Because I tell him, you have every right to feel angry with me because I am denying you of something that you love to do. I get it. But as your mom, my job is your health and safety and mental well-being. And too much on that screen is not good for it. And so I accept fully that you can be mad at me, and you don't have to talk to me if you don't want to. But I stand strong in that you can't play with your device. And yeah, it's horrible to have your kid mad at you. It's horrible, especially at that tween age, right? They become more prickly sometimes, and they argue with you more. But non-attachment to the outcome. Because what is my desire? And remember, desires are, you have to have desires. What is my desire? My desire is to raise fully capable, functioning adults that are kind, that are independent, that are resilient. That's my desire. Does it have a selfish motive behind it? Not really, I don't think. It's for their own sake. I don't get any benefit from it. Whether somebody says, you have amazing kids, and they praise them, or they say, oh, your kids are really, really naughty. Those are outcomes that are irrelevant. I'm not attached to that. It's for their own sake. So I'm maybe indifferent to the emotions, but I feel them. And even though you can act as cool as a cucumber, you still feel emotions. It's not that you stop feeling and you stop loving because you're non-attached. You feel them, but you let it go. You let it go because you don't take it so personally. Oh, I'm such a horrible mother. My kid hates me. No, I accept that my kid is angry with me. I accept it. I totally accept it. It's my job. It's actually one of the most thankless jobs, except on Mother's Day and birthdays. But that's how it is. Now, I've spoken from the perspective of motherhood. It works the same in a work environment. The same thing in a work environment. The same thing with a complicated family environment. And it again comes back to looking at yourself, going through that process of yoga chitta vritti nirodha, practice, non-attachment, organizing your closet, cleaning it out, practicing meditation as an active practice to clean out the closet of your mind every day, every day, every day. But you have to start your practice within reasonable capability, which means take a current look at your life and see what is reasonable and feasible. Because spirituality does not mean running away from life. It means living life to its fullest, with full awareness, full wholehearted participation, and the wisdom to know that nothing on this earth is permanent. Not even our bodies, not even our minds. That is the secret. And it brings us to the last sutra of our first section of study, which is supreme non-attachment. Another layer. So I see a question. I'm going to take questions in a second. When there is non-thirst, so I'm on Sutra 16, page 27. When there is non-thirst for even the gunas, the constituents of nature, due to realization of the Purusha, the true self, that is supreme non-attachment. So again, this seems like such a heady, big, confusing sutra. So let's break it down part by part. The gunas. Raise your hand if you've heard this term before. Keep your hand up. Okay, so a lot of you know it. The gunas are the constituents of nature. The constituents of nature come into three categories: rajas, tamas, and sattvas. Rajas is activity. Tamas is inertia, no motion. And sattvas is the combination of both, dynamic stillness. They're kind of like the doshas in Ayurveda, where you have very active, hyper, fiery pitta. It's also known as rajas. Where you have very lethargic, stuck energy. It's known as kapha. And then you've got sattvas, which is the balance. Vata is also more on the rajasic side. You have the balance is where all three of those doshas come together with dynamic stillness. Kapha, that grounded steadiness, is what you need. You need to have roots in the earth. Fire, you need that willpower. Vata, you need to fly. Roots and wings and fire in the belly. So when you look at the constituents of nature in your life, you have tamas, the aspects of our life that make us tired, lethargic, depressed. Then you have the aspects of your life of rajas that make us anxious and stressed or hyperactive. And then we've got that dynamic stillness. And everything in nature carries these three constituents. For example, when the tree is like an apple tree is producing the apple, as the apple is growing from the tree, it is in a state of rajas, activity, 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 activity. Then when it is perfectly ripe, it drops. That is the perfect time to eat the apple in its most sattvic, ripe, pure state. And then if nobody eats it and the apple falls to the ground, it ferments and then it rots and then it becomes sludgy and composty and goes into the earth, ready to be recycled back. That state of decomposing is also tamas. But it's with everything. We might have a day where we wake up in the morning and it's a tamasic day. We're tired, we're sick, we're depressed. That is a tamasic day. And then we have a day where we have so many things going on that we are rushing around and feeling very stressed out and overwhelmed in our mind, and there's no groundedness. And we're going through the motions like a headless chicken. This is rajas. So when there is non-thirst for the gunas, so that means when we are free from craving anything that exists in nature, because everything that exists in nature is made up of the three gunas. When there is non-thirst for even the gunas, any element of nature, because we have realized our true self. The Purusha is a Sanskrit word, also meaning your true self. When you have realized your true self, you have come home to yourself. You don't crave anything in nature. And when I say craving things, you crave it because that is what you believe is going to bring you realization. So now as seekers, we have a desire for self-realization, but this is still a desire. Does that make sense? It's still a desire. It's not a bad desire. Again, we're not looking at anything in the context of good or bad. We are not. But it's still a desire. One day, with enough practice and non-attachment, we don't desire anything. We are just being instead of doing. And when we are being, because we have realized our true nature, this is when we have supreme non-attachment. Does that make sense? Ish. Okay, so it's okay. Supreme non-attachment, again, it comes with self-realization. So again, and that's why we don't talk about the samadhis. That's why we don't talk about these things, because unless you actually have some experience of it, But let me see if I can explain it in a simple analogy. Okay. I used to be a smoker, and I used to like smoking cigarettes. And then I decided to quit. And in the process of quitting smoking, I had to create and identify the triggers in my life that would make me want to smoke, in which case it was a glass of wine, because a glass of wine and a cigarette go hand in hand. And so I had to stop the wine in order to stop cigarettes. But of course, I'd still go out with my friends, and they would have the wine and the cigarettes, and they would turn around and say, you know, oh, you're doing so good. I don't want to tempt you. I don't want to tempt you. And in the beginning, I'd be like, oh, just blow the smoke in my face. It's okay. Right? Still craving, still craving, still craving. And then I would work towards that mastery. Be free from craving, be free from craving. So then the physical craving leaves you, right? Your body actually clears out the nicotine in maybe 3 short weeks. Your body is quite efficient to clear it out. But the psychological craving still remains. And the attachments to the sense of belonging. Am I going to be out of the group because I'm not a smoker anymore? I feel kind of lost. So much of my identity is wrapped up with being a smoker and having this type of persona and attitude and personality. Then that's the next layer of non-attachment. You've lost the physical craving, then you have to let go of the psychological craving behind it. And then one day, you're not even craving it. You're not even thinking about it. You're not even thinking about it. So when you don't think about it, that's almost like, ooh, I'm not attached to nicotine. I'm not attached to cigarettes anymore. That's regular non-attachment. And you can see the journey it takes you to get there. Now, supreme non-attachment is the same thing, but with everything in the world. It's a journey. It's a journey. So please don't stress about, oh my God, I have to be supremely non-attached to everything in the world. Start with the one thing that is bugging you the most. That's the first place to start. The one thing that is causing you the most amount of stress and strife and lack of mental peace and clarity. Start with that one.